in the game. From the gridiron, hardwood, and everything in between, we're tackling the biggest headlines in the world of sports. Step into the arena as we go in the game. Here's Matt Miguez.
Welcome into another edition of In the Game. Matt Miguez here, and we've got plenty to get to. It's been about a 6-week hiatus for In the Game. Look, I went on vacation, and when I came back from vacation, work was incredibly busy. And so, you know, these little passion projects kind of got put on the shelf. But we're back. Plenty to talk about. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament a little later on in the show because I do have some thoughts on the way that the tournament went down. But before we do that, let's talk LSU athletics as well as the Masters tournament with our guy Bryce Koon from the Crowded Booth Podcast Network. Bryce, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. You kind of hinted at it there. I mean, it's Masters season. The weather, the pollen here in South Louisiana is picking up a little bit, so it's a lot of different things that are signaling springtime. But I got to watch the par 3 contest today. We're recording this on Wednesday, so you know, man, it's a good week. It's a fun week. Just kind of kick back and watch some sports on TV.
Yeah, it is the second weekend in April. I like to call it the best weekend in golf because look, the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open. All of that is fun, but none of them are the Masters.
No.
It is the best weekend for golf on the entire 52-week calendar, and we'll spend plenty of time talking about the Masters. Can Scottie Scheffler go back-to-back? Can Rory McIlroy finally put on a green jacket for the first time in his career? Plenty of stuff we're going to get to. But first, I want to start talking about LSU, and more importantly, LSU baseball. What a start to the year for Jay Johnson's squad. Look, you know, they were a good team last year, but didn't quite live up to expectation when they got into the postseason, falling out in the North Carolina Regional. But then this team kind of comes in with a lot of freshmen and a lot of pieces that you had some question marks about, and they've answered them, and answered them pretty convincingly, especially Derek Curiel. I mean, look, you knew what type of player, the potential of Derek Curiel, right?
Yeah.
When people started comping him to Dylan Cruz, I was like, okay, I mean, like this guy might be good, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like we're talking about Dylan Cruz here. But look, man, 35 games in, he is all as advertised.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen out of a guy like Derek Curiel in left field for LSU?
Yeah, I kind of go back, Matt, to when they made that trip out to Frisco. Because, look, I mean, one of the more highly touted freshman players to come into the game, you expect a guy to do well against, and it's no knock, but the Purdue Fort Waynes, the Omahas of the world. Like, you expect that. I mean, he's taking advantage of some pitching that is maybe just a little bit better than he saw in high school, and some guys that are probably just as good as he saw in the high school and the travel ball circuit. But when they went out to Frisco, I think the biggest thing for me was just his approach with 2 strikes. He will get into his 2-strike count, and he's completely comfortable. And I think that was something that was just so, I don't want to say rare, but you just don't see that out of an 18, 19-year-old kid. Like, you just don't see someone, and look, even in the game last night against Nichols, like, he gets into a 2-strike count, and he's nodding, like, okay, I'm good. Like, he's comfortable in those positions. Right. And so, you know, look, you can talk about the on-base streak. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You know, obviously the Dylan Cruz comp there. It's just, one, you watch him, yeah, he's smooth. Everything he does is smooth. He's a really good fielder. He's got a beautiful swing from the left side. But I just think his mindset at the plate is something that has just really struck me in terms of watching him. You just look at it, and maybe the reason for some of those comps, you know, Matt, is because you shouldn't be like that at 18, 19 years old, and he is, and that's what makes him such a special player. So, you know, I kind of go back, like I was saying earlier, to that Frisco, you know, weekend where he really had some, you know, timely hits. You know, he had an opposite field home run. He's had a couple of those this year where it's just like he's got power to all fields. And, Jay Johnson talked about, too, like the biggest thing for him, they knew what they had, but they had to get him physically ready to play in the SEC, and they feel like he's there. And so I think it's an exciting time to watch him. It's an exciting, chance for LSU fans to watch a guy that opted to not go into the MLB draft and have his chances at pro ball. But Curiel's a special player, and so I think it's just the mindset. Yeah, we know the tools, we see the physical gifts, but his mindset is well beyond his age.
And another guy that has really stood out is Chris Stanfield. Came over from Auburn. Obviously, put up some good numbers at Auburn, and was looking for a different opportunity. And you kind of had some questions about where he would fit in, and how quickly he would get acclimated to LSU. But he's really hit the ground running out there in the outfield for the Tigers.
Yeah, Stanfield for me is a guy that, one of my first events covering LSU, been on the beat for 2 years now. For folks that don't know, I am from Georgia, and I'm from Columbus, Georgia, which is right on the state line from Alabama. Right, if you like country music and you like Alan Jackson, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee, that is us. Like, we are literally, I went to school half a mile from the Chattahoochee River. So all those things being said, we're 20 minutes from Auburn. So when LSU came to Auburn back in 2023, I said, hey, I'm going to go cover. And so, that was obviously the Skeens year. I believe he had 15 strikeouts on that Friday night. But one of the things that Jay has talked about, and I kind of went back and looked at some of my notes from that game, was Stanfield put together some good at-bats. And you mentioned him wanting something more. I mean, this is a guy that the past 2 seasons when they have played Auburn, Stanfield was a guy that caught Jay's eye. And look, he's sitting in the 9-hole. He is not your prototypical 9-hole hitter. He is the perfect second leadoff guy to flip that lineup back over. And I love just his willingness to do whatever it takes. I mean, I think that's something that, and to not get too 30,000-foot view here, that's something that this team last year, for whatever reason, just didn't have. And you have 9 guys in that lineup that are like, you know what? Individual stats aside, and like you mentioned, they're all pretty good individual stats, we want to help this team win. And Stanfield embodies that. I think he has been a massive piece. Like, I don't think this team is where they are if they don't have him in that 9-hole spot. And then, defensively, and his speed, I mean, you can't teach speed, and he has that. And so I think just his ability to play a solid, defensive center field, but offer something with the bat as well, whether it's, handling bunts or whether it's a timely hit like he had against last night against Nichols. So it's a veteran presence they were able to go get. He wanted something more in the hit tool, and I feel like, you go back, and I know he's kind of been scuffling this year, but really similar situation to what Michael Braswell was in last year of, hey, I want something more. I've played in the SEC for a year or two. I feel like I can develop my bat more. Let's go somewhere where they develop offense. And I feel like Stanfield's shown that. And I don't know what his pro projections are, but I mean, he's definitely shown something, I think, to some scouts that he's more than just a, defensive outfielder. He can handle the bat pretty well. And so I'm excited to see how he develops, because I think however far LSU goes, Stanfield's name is going to have to be mentioned in that journey.
You see, I don't want to jump the gun, but I'm glad you brought up the 9 guys that are willing to do whatever it takes. Because you talked about last year. Last year's team did not have that.
Yeah.
For, like you said, for whatever reason. 2023 did. And that's why 2023 won a national championship. Sitting here at 31-3, number 3 in the country, I'm hearing some people, start to compare this year's team so far to 2023. Do you see any comparisons? What sticks out to you about this team compared to that title team?
Until last weekend in Oklahoma, I was hesitant to say that they had a guy that could just go out there and dominate. And I think, look, Paul Skeens is a unicorn. I've said that and told LSU fans this so many times. Like, if you expect another guy like that, even a guy like Chase Shores who has that height and size and, some of the peripherals in his game, that's not happening again. Like, that is a once-in-a-generation type of talent. But Cade Anderson, man, I have said this multiple times. And I got in trouble because, as people know, I'm from the state of Georgia, so they thought I was alluding to, the University of Georgia in this. But there was a old Dodgers pitcher named Oral Hershiser, and he was known as a bulldog. Like, he would just go out there, and he had an intense fire to him. And that's what I've likened. I had Cade Anderson on our podcast. We talked with him and have talked with him multiple times in the media. Like, off the field, he's like the nicest guy in the world. He's just happy to be there. But when he's in between those lines and he's on that mound, he has that mentality. So back to your question with it, I was kind of hesitant to say they had that because I don't know if you'll ever have that again.
Right.
But I do think you have two really, really good arms and solid arms in Ianson and Anderson. Still tinkering or figuring out what Chase Shores can be. But the biggest comparison for me, and Matt, excuse me for your viewers and listeners here because I know someone's going to say, well, actually, fact check me here on this. I haven't looked at the actual data. I just feel, watching both of these teams over the course of the season, 1 through 9, there's just not a gimme out. Like, it's not there. And that was something this 2023 team had to me, where there was just like, yeah, you might have a guy scuffling, but anyone at any moment could do some damage. Now, is it all over the wall? No. I think this team's the exact same thing. They're not going to hit a home run every single time they go out there. But, man, they're going to put pressure on you. They're going to make you make a play. And I think that's something is probably the biggest, comparison factor when you look at just 2023 to 2025. I mean, like you said, you don't want to make the comparison, Curiel to Cruz, and
Right.
however, but it's just
Jared Jones is not Tommy White.
exactly no, he's not, but I think that it's just a scenario of where you just have guys that put together good at bats, and that's what you had in 2023, and so that type of mentality, like we were talking about with Curiel, and I think that's Jay has hinted at this, and I've we all in the media try to get us. You try to steer a coach towards an answer or towards a certain question, but I have done this multiple times, and I have kind of gotten him to say, and I'm going to try to, if LSU wins this weekend, I'll be out there in Auburn and try to get them to say this, but I think he's having a lot of fun with this group, and he had a lot of fun with that 2023 group. And it's not to say he didn't enjoy the 2024 group, but I think we all know he didn't enjoy that season and how it played out, obviously, and what they had to go through. I think he enjoys this because of the buy-in of the mentality, and I think that's something that's eerily similar to 2023. The buy-in, the understanding of what it takes, and like we mentioned earlier with Curiel and a couple of the guys, you got a lot of young guys that have never been here before that are buying in, which is that speaks to the culture that Jay Johnson has built at LSU.
One more guy I want to talk about on this roster before we move on to softball is Michael Braswell. Because Braz comes in last year, is your everyday starting shortstop. And, he had his down moments, right? Like a lot of players do. But he also had some really, really good moments, right? And now this year, he comes in and through 31 games only has 59 at bats, 2 doubles, no homers, only 9 runs batted in. His production and his playing time, quite frankly, have dropped tremendously.
Yeah.
But yet, he still shows up every day. Talk about how important it is to have a guy that, played last year, made an impact last year, this year has his role changed, but still shows up and decides to be a good teammate each and every day.
I mean, as well as I do, Matt, in the day and age of the transfer portal and all this kind of stuff, like, I know it's mid-season, but it would be really easy. Let's just paint this hypothetical, okay? This is not all what's happening, but let's just, how south could this have gone? So you have a kid in Tanner Reeves, right, who has great bat-to-ball skills. Like, just I call Tanner Reeves, he's just a ball player. Like, he just plays the game at a high level at a lot of the time. But you have a guy who's made the jump from JUCO, not highly touted, not highly rated, all these type of things. And then you have a guy, Michael Braswell, who has an SEC pedigree, like you mentioned, coming off the season he did. And the fans on social media have been clamoring for Tanner Reeves to get more ABs. Reeves has gotten more ABs. There's been maybe more opportunities for Reeves. The mindset of what you alluded to that Braswell is in, I don't know a lot of other guys that would handle this the way he's handling it, because you're the guy, right? Like, you were one of the, I don't want to say heroes, but you were one of the dudes on that run last year when they tried to get to that super regional all the way up into that final game in Chapel Hill. Like, you were a dude that was going to be a part of a super regional team that was going to come back to Baton Rouge and host a super regional. And I don't want to say, like, to just kind of not disappear, but to not even be close to remotely being one of those guys on this year's team so far, the way he's handled is great. And, like, I was talking with someone, I said, like, I need you to tell me, like, how is he handling this? And they said, like, you wouldn't know. Like, you just wouldn't know that he's not the starting third baseman for LSU. You wouldn't know that he's not one of the top 5 hitters on this team. the way he carries himself. And once again, I think it speaks to the culture that LSU has, that Jay Johnson has instilled, and an understanding that at a program like LSU, I mean, you know this, Matt, you've been down here for a while, like, you don't have to play every day to get looks at the next level here. Like, there's so much talent on this roster. Like, Jake Brown is another example, and don't want to derail the conversation, but he's only played in 26 games. He is very much a pro prospect. Like, not obviously for this year, but he's very much a pro prospect. Like, so you have guys that understand, like, hey, if I take advantage of my opportunities when they come, and I also have the backing of this staff that is very well connected in scouting departments and professional front offices, that's going to do well for me. And I think Braswell has a keen understanding of that. He's been ready when his name has been called. And then in terms of on the field, like, I feel like he's gotten some better swings. Like, he's taken some better at-bats dating back to probably that Mississippi State series, to where he really started to kind of hone in on some of those things. So I think it's crazy. I mean, look, the college football world's about to be turned upside down again on April 16th. We're going to see the portal open again. The basketball portal's going wild while the NCAA tournament's going on. It's a microwave world. And Michael Braswell has chosen to say, you know what, I'm cool. This is where I want to be. This is where I feel like it's the best thing for me. And when I get my chance, I'm going to take advantage of it. And that's pretty rare. That's a rare thing to not become a clubhouse cancer in terms of that. Like, that's pretty cool, I think.
The Tigers have a 3-game set with Auburn this weekend on the Plains. Switching over to softball now, 31-5. They are a top 5 team in the country, and they're about to go on the road. Well, they were on the road for 3 games against Alabama, or that was in Tiger Park.
That was in town. Mm-hmm.
They're about to go on a 6-game road trip to Texas A&M and Texas this weekend and late next week. A&M, look, that's a top 5 matchup. A&M comes into that one at number 3. Obviously, we've learned from baseball that the A&M fans in College Station can get a little rowdy.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Beth Torina's squad and the adversity that you think they're going to face this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I think a lot of LSU fans have been holding their breath on is, look, we've seen this before. We've seen this movie before with LSU, where you start off crazy good, you're a top 5 team, and then you start to get an SEC play and you scuffle. And a lot of eyebrows were raised when South Carolina came to town. That was a top 15 matchup. And you win the first one, but then they take the next 2, and you lose a series for the first time all year. And I think for a lot of people it was, okay, here we go again. This is what's going to happen again. But then you bounce back and you take down, you take 2 out of 3 from Alabama, which that's definitely not the Alabama in terms of the softball world that we've seen over the past 5 years, even 6 years, but it's still Alabama. They still have some good players. But you take 2 of 3 from them, which was impressive. And I think the key kind of heading into this next couple of weekends, and obviously starting off with College Station, is you have more than one pitcher you can go to. And the college softball world has changed so much for people who don't know. Like, you go back to some of the bigger names, obviously everyone knows, if you follow softball or even if you follow sports, you know who Jenny Finch is. Okay, so if you want to go all the way back to then, softball was really dominated by, you just had an ace. And you might have another pitcher that pitches a midweek game or tries to spot that pitcher, but you are going to ride with that ace. I mean, out of the 27 innings you play in a weekend, you're probably going to utilize her for 23 of them. I mean, that's what you're going to do. And LSU has had to do that at times. But this year, with the addition of Heavner, who is a dynamic freshman southpaw, alongside Sidney Berzon, I just think that you have the makings of what you need to get to Oklahoma City. So that's one thing. I think that's a big difference and why you should have some confidence heading into these next 2 weekends, even though it is a challenge. And you're not going to be perfect, but Tori Edwards has been ridiculous. For her to be a redshirt freshman, she has been just crazy, crazy good. I think the addition of Avery Hodge, transfer from Oklahoma, has been a positive thing, just in terms of you lose some veterans off of last year's team, and you need to replace that leadership factor. Well, Hodge is a player who's been there and done that. She's won back-to-back titles at Oklahoma. And then you've had some younger players there step up as well. Savannah Bedell has been a player that's really kind of stepped up. And then Danica Coffey. You can't leave the segment and not talk about what Danica Coffey has meant just in terms of that leadership value, knowing what Beth Torina wants. So all those things being said, like, yeah, it's definitely tough. Like, I mean, I'll tell you this, Matt. If they win both of these series, then there's no reason you shouldn't be in Oklahoma City. You're probably the best team in the SEC, or if not one of those. Like, you're right up there with the Oklahoma, Texases of the world. So I really like where Trina has this team. But this is kind of where you make the money, right? This is where the expectations of LSU fans have kind of, I would say, teetered off a little bit, because you're all like, they're not impressed. Like, how spoiled are we talking about here? 31-5, and you're like, okay, yeah, but let's see what happens here. You know, there's 100 plus other softball programs that would kill for what LSU has going on for it right now. But these next 2 weekends are definitely going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, you know, you brought up the innings thing. I actually took, while you were talking, I brought up Jenny Finch's career stats. In 2002, her final year at the University of Arizona, she pitched 273 and a third innings.
That's ridiculous.
Last season, Sydney Berzin pitched 204.
And that included a game in the SEC tournament that went like a crazy. She pitched like 13 innings, I think, something like that. Like,
innings,
yeah. So that's the point of where you have to have multiple arms, not just bodies. Like, you got to have some people that can pitch, and I think Tarina has that this year, and that's the difference in terms of why. You know, the first 2 years I covered LSU's softball team, I was kind of like, okay, they've got talent, but this year I'm like, yeah, you got to go. Like, the floor to me is you got to get to Oklahoma City. Like, you take care of your business in a regional. Depending on who you face in a super regional, we'll see. But I mean, Oklahoma City is definitely within reach.
Yeah, and you know, you brought up Danica Coffey, who's obviously been huge, hitting 459 this year, coming back from injury, and then Tori Edwards. One player that I'm really been impressed by, and I'm a little biased. You know, she's from my home parish. I got to cover her in high school. Macy Bergeron has been just incredible this year, hitting 406. She's got 8 homers, 38 runs batted in. She's been a great defensive catcher behind the plate. Beth Tarina's been waiting for this version of Macy Bergeron.
Yeah, you go back, you know, Matt, to last season or even her freshman year, where she only played in 37 games. She kind of you saw some flashes of what she could be, you know, in that freshman campaign. Last year, I think, was a big boost of her confidence of just being able to play more and kind of building that, and it all kind of led to this year 3 where you talked about. I mean, she's kind of broken out into a star, like, I think, for not just in this team but in the conference as well. And you add in her to what she does defensively behind the plate. It's kind of the total package of what you want as a catcher, and especially the SEC level here in the softball. So, yeah, I think it's just the development of some of these players. I mean, you know, I mentioned Tori Edwards earlier, and then to be able to go into the portal and get an Avery Hodge, you get Danica Coffey back for another year. It's just, this team had all the makings of what they could be, and I think they knew that in the preseason. But I just don't know if. I don't know if fans knew that, because all you saw was some of the big names leave, right? And you're like, oh, how are you going to replace this? So I think they knew it in the building, and they're trying to live up to that. Now, obviously, you know, like we mentioned, you got to go take care of business these next 2 weekends, get ready for the SEC tournament in Athens, and this conference is crazy, and it's really competitive, so anything can happen. So I'm interested to see, and I've been keeping tabs on some early bracketology for softball, and the last one I saw, it had, I can't remember what seed LSU was, but their regional was matched up with the Tuscaloosa regional. So you'd feel pretty good about welcoming Alabama back to, if everything went chalk there, welcoming Alabama back to it. Who wouldn't want to see? I mean, look, I know it's not LSU baseball, I get it, but LSU softball, they have some diehard fans. It's really, really fun to watch. I think that just in terms of, like, who wouldn't want to see LSU and Alabama face off for a chance to go to the Women's College World Series? So a lot of fun storylines, and obviously something to keep an eye on.
Let's switch over to football now. You know, obviously they're deep in the heart of spring practice. The open spring practice, not a spring game this year. The open spring practice is taking place this Saturday at Tiger Stadium. What's kind of been your early thoughts here in spring about what you've been able to see out of LSU football?
Yeah, I think, you know, the spring practice is such a, and look, you're in the same business I'm in here. Like we find talking points, right? Like we're the talking heads, and so you're going to talk a lot about that right guard battle and who's Braylon Moore against DJ Chester for snaps at center, and all that's great and fun stuff to talk about. I will say this, like I don't think it was coach speak when Brian Kelly started off the spring by saying, "Hey, don't pay attention to the depth chart at offensive line," because we feel like we have around 8 or 9 guys that could play for us, and like we are going to change. Like spring ball right now is such a time of the year, Matt, where you are trying to find, especially in LSU's position on that offensive line, you're trying to find who fits where and what is the best 5 combination we can roll with. And so, look, there's been some days we go out there and DJ Chester's first-team center. Braylon Moore takes first-team reps. Josh Thompson is a guy that has just played just about everywhere except for center. Both guard spots and a little bit of tackle. Tyree Adams is a guy who can be a swing tackle for you, can play the guard spot. Then you have the host of all the young kids, Carius Kern, who people inside that building have raved about just his natural strength. So I really do believe, like I know people don't want to believe sometimes what coaches say or say, oh, that's coach speak. I really do believe it. Like I think that they think, not that I think that they think they have around 9 guys that could play, and they don't. It's not settled yet. So that to me is kind of one of the biggest developments. If I flipped it over defensively, everyone wants to talk about the secondary, and I'm just going to tell you, like, you're probably, if you clip this, it's gonna be like, well, no. I mean, of course, Sherlock. Like, of course, you're saying it can't be any worse because it's been pretty bad the past couple of years.
No shit.
Yeah, I didn't know if we could say that here, but yeah, like, I mean, of course we can. It can be better. The floor, I don't know about the ceiling, okay, but the floor of this cornerback room is going to be so massively improved. One, because it was not good. So is it going from awful to like average? Maybe that is what it is going to. I don't know. But having a Mansour Delane, a Jakeem Jackson, DJ Pickett, like that instantaneously raises your floor. Freaky, man. And, I was talking about him today on our 24/7 national show, and I was just like, everything that you wanted out of him in terms of bulking up. 6'4", he came in, he might have been 170 pounds. Like maybe. Reports are he's up to 180, 190. Well, there you go. That's what he needed to add and learn how to play with, that you can count on him when you get to that season opener in August against Clemson. The secondary, for me, the floor is going to be raised. Now, does that mean they're going to be top 5 in the SEC? I don't know. I already told you, I don't know what the ceiling is for this group. I think it's pretty high. But I feel like just the floor of this group has improved dramatically. So, not even talk about the guy who's the incumbent starter in Ashton Stamps. Like, that's kind of the thing at spring. We're not even really talking about him, and it's probably because we don't know where he fits in if those 3 guys I listed, are going to be the de facto starters. So that's kind of the look for defensively for me. And I teased earlier about the transfer portal. Kind of the last thing in terms of spring football has just been that interior defensive line rotation. I feel really good about where they are with the edges. I think Jack Pyburn's an animal. I think at the very least, if he does not come into the season and dominate as a pass rusher, which is something he wanted to, Matt, he had 60 tackles, I believe, or at least 60 tackles last year from the defensive end edge position. That's called getting after it. Like, that's not a position where you're making a lot of tackles in terms of the run game. He is an elite run stopper in the SEC. He has shown you that. It's not something you have to wonder about. Like, he has shown you that. And LSU's given up something crazy like 225-plus yards in their SEC losses under Brian Kelly in the past 2 years. You have to have it. So at the very least, the floor of that run defense is going to get better. But interior defensive line is interesting for me. Sadir Mitchell when I say a big addition, I mean both figuratively and literally. He is a big man. You have to have a guy that can just plug a hole. Like, you have to have a space eater. They have him. Obviously, for people who kind of paid attention to all the message board stuff like that and social media, he went down with the supposed injury this week in practice. Looks to be okay. The early signs that it's going to be fine, just something precautionary. But I think just in terms of that, like, if he isn't ready to go, you have to go find somebody, in my mind, the portal like that. Whatever NIL money you have left for this year, that needs to go to that position, because I like Don McKinley. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love the kid. Expecting him to step in and be the guy, not a guy, but the guy, that's just a lot to ask. I mean, you're talking Glenn Dorsey type of stuff. Like, that's what he'd have to be.
He can be that.
Yes.
but not yet.
Yeah, and putting it on his shoulders right now is unfair to him and his development. So, and look, I like Ahmad Bro a lot too, but I will continue to say this: great kid, completely selfless. I don't believe that he needs to be one of your starting 2 defensive tackles of the interior. Like if that is what he is, then I'm wrong. Clip it, make fun of me, fine. Like that kid's not listening to media.
To do a lot of that.
So that's good. Yes, so freezing cold takes, get that out of there when he's like SEC all-second team. But in terms of his size, like he had to bulk up a lot. So all that to say is I like where they can be. I think they're really young there. Sadir Mitchell, though, man, he has to be it, because if he works out, it changes the trajectory, I think, of what this team can accomplish in 2025.
So I remember talking to Garrett Nussmeier last year at the Manning Passing Academy, and I remember him saying how excited he was to be the guy, right? Mm-hmm. And it finally be his team. And you saw that in moments last year. Played very well, put up great numbers. How much different has he been this offseason now that he has that full year of being the dude under his belt? How much different is he carrying himself on the field?
I think the biggest thing is a confidence in his preparation and what he's doing. Because, and it kind of links back to, that's my take, and I'm backing that up, kind of with what Joe Sloan said in his press conference a couple weeks ago, when he was like, the biggest thing for Garrett is that he's not going back and looking at practice tape. He's looking at game tape. Before it was, hey, how did I do in this practice or in this 7-on-7 or this, this one situation in the SEC title game a couple of years ago, or this one situation against Alabama when the game was over. Like, he can go back and look at 13 games of game tape where he is the guy. And that offense is built for him. And so I think that's helped his preparation. I think it's helped his leadership skills. And so I just overall, look, fans can clamor about his decision-making at times. Was it questionable at times? Sure it was. Yeah, it was. You can't disappear in big games. Like, the Texas A&M game is a game he'd probably love to have back. Honestly, out of all of the games LSU lost last year, I think that's the one game he personally would probably like to have back more than any of the other ones.
That one stings.
That one stings. But I just think the preparation aspect, knowing that you can go back and look at game tape, what works, what doesn't work, instead of practice tape, is such a big mental thing. Like, okay, because practice is such a simulated thing, right? Like, it's set up for you to have success, especially at the quarterback position. Like, look, whatever they're going to tell you, there's not, unless you're a defensive-minded head coach, there's not a lot of coaches that are going to put their quarterbacks in a bad situation or to set up to fail, right? Because quarterbacks are historically mentally fragile. I don't want to say fragile, but there's the guys that mentally could get hurt from that.
I think mentally fragile is a good word.
Yeah, so and so you don't want to destroy their confidence in spring practice number 7. So you want to set them up to succeed. So I just think that his preparation aspect of knowing you can go back and look at stuff when I was in adversity, instead of me rolling out here, I got to learn from that. That helps, having that to look at. And in season, guys are going to tell you whatever they're going to tell you. It's really hard to introduce new things. Like, once you get to like week 4 or 5, you just are who you are. Like that. Like, there's nothing you can really do to change unless you have a bye week. And so, kind of going back to when LSU lost the A&M game, then when they lost to Bama and Florida, like, there was nothing they were going to be able to change. No one else is walking through that door. It is what it is. So I think that's just kind of the biggest thing for Nussmeier.
All right. I'm going to use my technology in here.
All right.
I'm going to lean back a little bit and get comfortable to ask this one, because we're going to address an elephant in the room.
Okay.
We're going into year 4 for Brian Kelly. Year 1 was great, right? Bring him to the SEC championship when, people didn't really expect you to do a ton. And then the next year, you have a Heisman-winning quarterback, but maybe one of the worst defenses college football has ever seen. So, you didn't do a ton, right? Last year, you lost some games that you really shouldn't have, and it kind of put a damper on the whole season.
Yeah.
If this roster, full of veteran-laden talent, you've got 8, I think the statistic was 8 receivers that run a 4.5 or faster, you've got a good offensive line coming back like Coach Kelly's talked about, this, that, and the other. If this team does not make the college football playoff, Scale of 1 to 10. How hot is Brian Kelly's seat?
7.5. 7 to
Really?
8. I think so. Now, are you saying really higher? Or would you rather
say higher? I was going to say 9 or 10.
Okay, well, let's say this. In terms of how hot is the seat from administration or from the fan base? Because I think there's a disconnect.
Administration.
Okay, administration, I'll go 7.5 or 8 because I don't know and truth, like, listen, I haven't been around LSU too long enough to really know the financial situation. All I'm continuing to be told is, hey, you couldn't afford it. Now, if they just narrowly miss a playoff, okay, it's not good. You don't need to miss a playoff. But if you're talking about like a 5-7 season, let's ratchet that thing up to like 14, kind of thing. Like you can't. That's that conversation. The fan base is going to be irate. And I'll tell you, like, I have them as a fringe playoff team this year. Like, I don't want to get full on to my predictions for the season, but like, right now, if you held a gun to my head, Matt, and said who wins week 1, I'm taking Clemson. Like, I think Clemson wins in their own building against you.
Because LSU can't win season opening games.
Can't win season opener, and no, you can say that, and also you can say too is look, you know me, I come from an ACC background and kind of stuff, so I'm very well acquainted with what happens in this conference. Clemson is still much a very good football team.
Of course.
And very veteran, and they have a veteran defensive line that gets after it and is going to be playing against a brand new offensive line unit week 1. So all that to say is, look, for Brian Kelly, it's year 4, like you said. I never thought this team was going to go to the playoff last year. I just didn't see it. There was nothing that told me in fall camp that they were going to do it. I just didn't think it. I mean, I was thinking you could go 9-3, but you're probably like the 16th team in the country, and they end up going 8-4, and they're 20th or something like that. So, all that being said, is like this year you went all in. The pressure's there because next year, let's just be real, you really don't know what you have at quarterback. Like, you think you've got Michael Van Buren or Colin Hurley or, somebody. You just don't really know. Like, you really don't know what you have there. No disrespect to Jawan Johnson, but, it is what it is. But dynamic athlete, I can't wait to see him get some touches, especially inside the red zone with how much they've struggled with that. But all that saying is they went all in, right? Like, all these transfers, it's like an NBA team knowing they have an aging core, and they sign a bunch of good veterans on 1-year deals to go get a championship. Now this is it. So man, if they miss the playoffs, I'll go 8.5. I've talked myself into going up because you just can't. Like, if you don't make it with this group, what more do you need?
That's what I'm saying.
Now you need defensive line help. You don't have an SEC star defensive tackle, so that's going to hurt you in some big playoff game atmospheres when teams can run the ball on you. But just to make it, like, look at the back half of who was in the conversation for the last playoff spot. Right? It was SMU because they lost the ACC title game. It was Alabama and it was South Carolina. When you stack those 3 teams and their rosters and what they had, LSU is at least as good as that. At least. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they have to be the SEC champion, the number 1 seed, but if you're not one of the best 12 teams, it is going to make for a very interesting offseason to where I think I don't know what you do. Like, I say it'd be good for business, right? Selling subscriptions on Go 24/7, but I don't know what you do in terms of. I have no idea. Can you convince the administration and donors that we have to do this all over again? I don't know.
And I don't disagree with that point, but I'm looking at the schedule, and I know it's early, and I know we still, there's still a lot to figure out for a lot of these teams. Bryce, the schedule's favorable. It's pretty favorable. You go to Clemson, then you have Louisiana Tech. That's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Florida's going to be really good this year. So that's going to be interesting, but it's in the swamp.
You ready for my hot take? They might bring the better quarterback have a better quarterback in that game. They might.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
More talented. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely wouldn't disagree with that. And then you have Southeastern. That's a win.
Yeah.
And then you go to Ole Miss, who has so many question marks going into 2025, I would say that's a win.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
South Carolina, probably a win. They're good, but I think
But that's at
LSU's
home.
better.
And it's at home too. That's going to make a difference.
Vandy, that's a win.
Yeah.
A&M, we'll see. I think A&M's really good. I think
Well,
they're gonna
also,
be
what's the
good.
trend with LSU and A&M? The home team wins all the games.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, if history shows,
LSU, right.
yeah,
And then you've got Bama, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, Oklahoma. This team could win 10 games.
yeah. And look, if you win 10 games, Matt, I mean that then you enter the conversation. It's like, do you want to play in the SEC championship?
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Well, you don't.
because here's where it's going to get interesting, and not to get too deep in the woods here with this, but if let's just say you go 10-2, okay? Let's take a loss at Alabama or somewhere. I don't know. Just put one there, and your other loss is to Clemson. You have one conference loss, so you're strong chance you're in the SEC title game. Let's say you lose that and you're 10-3. Well, should you get in? I would argue the precedent has been set that SMU got in and they lost their title game, but it's a 3-loss. And that's something we can have a conversation about if it happens.
I
But
think it would all
yeah,
come down to how you lost the title game.
and who your wins were against,
Correct.
too. Because if you're losing to Clemson, Alabama, you'd have to beat Ole Miss handily. You'd have to probably beat A&M handily, Florida handily. So to your point of that, strength of schedule, all that stuff's going to matter. But no, yeah, man, like I put the floor at 9 wins for this year. I think that you cannot go below 9 wins, because even with 9 wins, with the right loss, you could still get in. Like 9-3, that there will be a 3-loss team, the SEC team, that gets in the playoff. You just have to have the harder schedule. And like you said, we don't know. I mean, shoot, South Carolina could be unbelievable. Florida could be a top 10 team that no one's talking about right now. We just don't know. So that being said, is if they win 10 games, you got to be in. I think, like we were joking earlier, it all starts with week 1. Like that is, you want to talk about the fan base's reaction. There's going to be, week 1's going to give it to you. If they go over there and lose, man, it's, which I'm saying right now, I think they do. That's my pick.
I agree.
And yeah, I don't know. It's a weird schedule. Like you said, I mean, look, we're talking about this in April. I mean, how much do we really know? To your point about Ole Miss, I agree with you. Tons of question marks. If there is one guy that has shown that he knows how to replace it through the portal and overall,
It's Lane Kiffin.
it is Lane Kiffin. So that's the one thing I'll give him now. But this is a lot. He's replacing a ton. You have a lot. I mean, more than just quarterback. And I like Austin Simmons. I think he's a good young player. But all things considered, 9-10 wins. And look, as well as I do, a couple plays here and there could determine whether this team is in the Texas Bowl again, or they're playing for playoff spot. I will say this to round out that thought. I have made the executive decision, not that anyone cares, okay, Matt, but I don't know who I'm executive ordering this to, but maybe you would like to listen. If LSU's not going to play in the playoff, I'm down for 2 bowl games. The Pop-Tarts Bowl, because I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I will say this, the Texas Bowl. Why? You're going to have a good fan turnout because Houston has a lot of LSU fans, a lot of graduates go there, and Kinder's is the sponsor. And buddy, let me tell you, the food in the post-game in the press box was elite this past year. Brisket for all. So I'm a big food guy when I go places. They hit out of the park.
Every media guy is.
It's everything. Free food. It's free. Yeah. So that being said, but no, I think 9-10 wins is where you got to sit, and anything less than that, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, as selfish as it sounds, I want to go to the bowl game that has the best media gift.
That's true. I'll add this. I want to ask you this. I know it's your show. What's the win total that results in a Pete Thamel tweet saying LSU is cut ties of Brian Kelly?
After this season?
After this season.
Oh.
What is that? 4?
7.
7. Ooh.
7 or more. 7 or less.
7 and good grief.
I think if he goes 7-5, I mean the donors are at the gate, like pitchforks in hand, like ready to get out.
Yeah, I mean that's. Dang.
Because I mean, you could debate me on this, but I think the last 2 years this team's underperformed.
Well, I mean, we all know in 2023, if you had a competent defense, you're in the playoff. Like that's a national championship winning offense, the best offense in the country. Yeah, it was terrible. And last year,
that 3-game losing streak should have never happened.
It's hard to look back at it now and just realize to yourself, like, how did they fumble that away? Because they were, I mean, for a lot of national media, last year, it was like once they beat Ole Miss, everyone's like, okay, here they come. This is it. This is, they beat Ole Miss in that game, and then you get kind of ready to go and play A&M, and honestly, yeah.
I remember looking at you specifically after that Ole Miss game going, okay, this team's for real.
Yeah.
Because you lost to USC when, you really shouldn't have. And how do you respond to that? Well, you ripped off 6 straight wins.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those weren't pretty. You shouldn't have beat South Carolina.
But you did.
Yeah. You won 6 straight games, and the way you won that Ole Miss game, yeah, I remember looking and said, this team's legit. And then they lost 3 straight.
It's crazy what can happen in a 3-week span. It's nuts.
It's insane what can happen in a 3-week span.
I'll tell you this. I was even in the press box in College Station looking at people like, that first half, it's like, holy cow. Like, this team's going to be a top 5 team on Sunday when the polls come out. And 30 minutes of game time later, you're like, what just happened? What in the world just happened?
I'll tell you a story about that game. I was at Coshada in Kinder with Hunt Palmer, Brandon Taylor, and Marlon Favorite. I helped with the pregame and postgame show that weekend. And yeah, at halftime, we all looked at each other like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the game, we were all sitting there like, what did we just watch? What just happened?
Not to keep dragging it on, I have never in my life seen a team be so confused by the same thing over and over again.
Over and over again.
I mean, that will live in LSU fans' nightmares forever. Yeah. You shut up, and I'm going to say this, Matt, and I don't say this to a lot of people. LSU's crowd is insane, okay? Let me tell you that. I want to give props.
Oh.
That game that I went to, Matt, was the most incredible atmosphere I have ever seen in my life.
Flip. This is going on TikTok.
Let's do it. I'm serious. Now, look, Ole Miss LSU was unbelievable. But when they played power in the blackout unis and they start waving those dude, it's over. I was like, this is unbelievable. And then LSU comes in there and smacks them in the mouth. They can't do anything. I don't know. But just to kind of wrap that up, man, last year, last year you should have made the playoff. You just should have. And then to come back off a bye week and get embarrassed by one of the worst Alabama teams we have seen in the past decade is crazy.
I mean,
it's crazy.
He made you look silly.
And you knew what he was going to do, Matt. All due respect to the kid, he's not a passer. He just isn't. He throws a deep ball, and he is a world-class athlete. I don't want to take that away from him. But, Matt, you knew what he was going to do. And to literally have gotten beat by the same concepts 2 weeks earlier and knew nothing.
But you see, that's the thing. Not only did you know what he was going to do, he knew that you knew what he was going to do.
And you still didn't stop it. It's crazy. Yeah, no, man. That's honestly, Matt, how I look at these things, I don't want to say I wash away the previous season, but we roll into basketball season, and you get caught up in the job, right? Like you get into baseball season. Sure. You have now just brought it back to 2024 season for me, and I'm like, that's wild. I didn't grow up an LSU fan. I grew up in Georgia. Obviously grew up an SEC guy, but I was mad. I was like, what are we doing? Like, what is this? Like, what is happening here?
It was just infuriating to watch.
Yeah.
But hopefully for Tiger fans' sake, 2025 is a better year. All right, let's talk about the Masters because again, best weekend in golf. Again, plenty of storylines. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler looking to go back to back. Rory, this is the one major he has never won. You've got the live guys, Brooks Koepka. You know, it's weird with Brooks. He always seems to have a light switch that, you know, when he feels like playing really well, he can just flip it on and go with it. And then there's Bryson DeChambeau. And I want to start with Bryson because, look, he's become this cult hero for the United States, and it's all great. I have a ton of respect for Bryson and what he does. But at Augusta, you have to have really good iron play. Driving the ball 375 yards isn't going to do you a ton of good like it would at some other courses around the country. Realistically, what do you think Bryson's chances are this weekend?
Well, if you just got done watching, and I don't know if you watched it, but Full Swing, right? And I think what they said on Full Swing was so true about him just becoming more of a likable person. Like, you got to see who he is, and obviously the social media, his YouTube. Like, I mean, it's made. I think it's made him more comfortable, and I think it's also made fans like, oh yeah, like this is good for golf. Like this is what you need. And so, all that we're saying is, you know, look, if you're a casual golf fan, you might know this about Bryce DeChambeau. He hits it very hard and very far. And how does that play at Augusta? I actually think that his game around the green has improved dramatically over the past year. And I think that in terms of going back, Matt, to going back to when he won last year, it was such a monkey off the back, monkey off the shoulders for him that I think he's playing free and he's having fun. So, look, I mean, I don't know what the betting odds were on him, but I know he was up there. I like where he sits coming into this weekend. And I kind of watched the interview today when I think it was Marty Smith was talking to him during the par 3 contest, and he was like, you know, I feel like my game's in a good spot. I'm having fun. And, you know, a lot of people have talked about the Masters is you can't be like anal compulsive and go into that. Like you can't just be so worked up and so serious that you can't have fun. You have to enjoy it. And it kind of seemed like Bryson was in a good spot of where he was locked in, but also, you know, he's having fun. And you have to have that. You have to have that balance. And I think that's what makes guys like Scotty Scheffler so good, right? Because they look so relaxed, but they're also killers out there on the course. And so I think DeChambeau has a lot of those qualities. So I like where he sits coming into the weekend.
You know, you brought up Scotty. Obviously, you know, wins the Masters last year. Everybody remembers him getting arrested outside of the PGA Championship, which still is just such a wild story.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think his head is in terms of, you know, do you think he's worried about defending his Masters, you know, crown, or do you think he just wants to go out there, have some fun, and play some good golf?
I mentioned this earlier in the pod when we talked about, you know, I think it was Jay Johnson and some things, and I think Scotty's cut from this same cloth of just like, it's not robotic, but it almost is, where it's just like, yeah, I just go play golf. Like, I have fun, I play golf, I'm so calm, even keeled. And, you know, for people who followed Scotty when he first got on the tour, that wasn't him. He was very emotional, like very much showed his frustrations, and, you know, would throw a club, toss a club, you know, every now and then. And so I just think that that's who he has become. And I think that he's one of the few athletes in the world currently, Matt, that doesn't let everything affect him. I think he is that, and I think it's why you talk about the elite of the elites in terms of kind of, you know, athletes, professional athletes, and I think he's definitely in that tier, right? Like, I think a lot of us would say the number one golfer has to be in that tier in the world, but I think he's in that. So I don't think he's bothered by it at all. I think he definitely silently to himself has like that killer mentality. But I don't think it's something that he's necessarily putting at the forefront of, I have to go do this. That's not going to be on his mind tomorrow when he tees off. It's just going to be, hey, let's go play one day at a time. We're playing this game I've been playing for my entire life. Let's go have fun and play golf. And, oh, by the way, let's go, you know, just destroy everybody out here on the course.
So what, in your opinion, obviously you grew up in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're very familiar with the lore of Augusta.
Yeah, what we talked about earlier. There you go.
Yeah, the Masters flag hanging on the bulletin board, right? What is it that makes Augusta and the Masters so special?
Man, that is. I feel like I'm on full swing now, right? Like, that's a loaded question. But, I think that it's just and much like the cathedrals in college football, Tiger Stadium is one of them. The pageantry, the history, but I'd also say the unknown of Augusta National is probably what makes it so. It's mystique factor, right? Because we don't know a lot about it. There's not a lot of information on Bertman's place. There's not a lot of information on what happens when you get behind those doors because you can't document everything. And I was talking with my sister-in-law today about it, and she was like, we were watching the Part 3 contest, and she was just kind of like, it's so cool that, you get to kind of see these things and what you can see on the broadcast. And I was telling her, like, ESPN and CBS have 1-year contracts with these, with the Masters. They don't have multi-million-dollar. It's not a long-term deal. It's a 1-year thing, and it's move on. And they get to control. In return for that, Augusta National gets to control every aspect. What the broadcaster says, what is shown, how many clips shown, the airtime, all this stuff. So that being said, I think the mystique of not knowing, it's one of the last few things, not just in sports, but probably in the world, that you don't get to know all about.
Right.
And I think that's what makes the Masters so unique, because we don't know everything. We don't get to see everything. There's only certain places you can take pictures. There's only certain places you can have your phone out. There's only, this, the gear in terms of what you can have. Like, you can't get that anywhere else, unless you're buying at third market.
I was just about to say, you can't just go buy a Masters polo. Like,
exactly. You got to get it at Augusta or pay $500 on eBay for it, that type of thing. So I think it's one of the last few things in our world, in our society, that we don't have all the information on, and that's what makes it so special. Now, look, it's a beautiful course, all that, the history of it is definitely, but the mystique and lure of its, how exclusive it is, I think, is what makes it so special.
Rory had a good finish to his weekend last year at Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
Had the chip in out of the bunker at 18. Can he finally get that monkey off of his back and get this last major that has eluded him at a course where, for lack of better words, he's had a couple of choke jobs? Can he finally get it done?
I think so. I think that, he talked with the media today and was kind of, just reiterating, like, he doesn't know if mentally he's been in this good of a spot heading into the Masters and to Augusta in the 5 or 6 years. Like, he just doesn't know if he has. And obviously, the off-the-course stuff that had happened, and just in terms of his game, and whether it's his personal life or all this live PGA Tour, like, it kind of feels like some that stuff's died down so much to this point of where, like, a lot of guys can just focus on playing golf. And I think Rory has been one of the recipients on the positive side of things, right? A couple of wins. He wins the Players. So I think he's in a good spot. And, of course, it's going to be a talking point. Like, Matt, if it doesn't happen, you and I are going to be sitting right here next year talking about, well, is it going to happen? And some things like that. But I feel like he's pretty well positioned. I feel like his game is pretty well. He feels comfortable in and around the green, which, if you know anything about Augusta, like, Augusta will kill you at that. Like, you think that you've had a good approach, but then you get there and it's, there's 40 different options that you can go to. So I just think he has a good feel in his game. And one of the big things he talked about was just knowing how he finished on Sunday. You can't win Augusta. You can't win the Masters on a Friday or Saturday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You can lose it, though. And not allowing himself to lose it those first couple of days, I think, is going to give him a better shot, or as good of a shot as anybody.
Give me your dark horse to look out for this week.
Oh, I got it, man. I've got a rep. So, like I mentioned, I'm from Columbus, Georgia. So I'm going Russell Henley. 7th in the world. Feeling pretty good. No, that's really a favoritism thing, I guess. No, he's playing good golf right now, so why not?
It's funny that you said that name, because I've interviewed 3 people to talk about the Masters, and I've now heard Russell Henley from 2 of them.
Okay, so I'm not just favoritism. He's from my hometown.
That's a legit pick.
He's playing good golf, and to talk about a guy that is under the radar, who's literally coming off a recent win in Henley, his 5 PGA Tour victories, like, it's not like this unheralded, and the number 7 golfer in the world, I believe, right now. He's not completely unheralded, but it's like, I don't feel like he's being talked enough about in the way he's playing right now. So, no, I'm going with Henley as a guy that, like you mentioned, understands lore from Georgia, from the state of Georgia in terms of where he played, continued to play in his professional ranks. So, I like Henley. I think another one to watch, and I was looking at some of the betting odds in this, I feel like another guy that we're just not talking enough about because of the big stars is Colin Morikawa. Like, we know what he was able to do last year. What is he? He's a top 5 golfer in the world, so I've gone with 2 top 10 golfers as my dark horse contenders. But you know how hard Augusta is. It isn't favored to anybody. But his putting in terms of the analytics is way better this year, and that's something he struggled with last year, especially at Augusta. So I'm going with Colin and Russell Henley. Those are my 2 guys that I'm kind of just keeping an eye out on. And I wanted to give one more as kind of a newcomer because I was looking at some of this. The newcomer is apparently one of these guys is, let's go back to Thomas, I hope I say his name right, Detry.
Mm-hmm.
He won the Waste Management, the Phoenix Open, and he tied for 4th last year at the PGA Championship at Valhalla. He was top 15, I think, at Pinehurst, the U.S. Open. So he's a guy who I feel like is, maybe one of the younger guys. Like, it's his first time playing the Masters. Let's see what he looks like. Like, this is kind of that coming of age, not the coming of age, but just maybe a potential coming out party. Even if he doesn't win, I want to see kind of where he finishes as Sunday rolls around.
So you went with number 7 and number 4.
Okay.
In the official world golf rankings. My dark horse is number 3 on the list. It's Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, he's pretty good too. Yeah.
Look, Xander had a great year last year. He took home 2 of the 4 majors. Played really well for most of the season. And, I don't know, man. I think there's just going to be something about his game this weekend at Augusta that's going to stand out.
Yeah, he's such a good player, and I feel like he is just kind of consistently there in terms of being in contention. It's probably just the fine things that he has to tweak. It's a couple of different approach shots here. It's that putt, from 8 or 9 feet here that if it goes different. I just feel like he's a guy who's constantly in the conversation. And, look, I had coaches telling me grow up in different sports, and I'm sure you did as well, and everyone has. Like, if you want to be that guy that is just constantly around, because if you're constantly hanging around, at some point you're going to break through. That's what you would like to believe. And so I think Schauffele's a guy, definitely a candidate for that.
All right, last question before I let you run. You walk into LaBerge on Sunday morning. You got $20, and the only thing left that you can bet on is the Masters champion. Who's that 20 going on?
Can I split it, or I got to go one on one
Gotta
guy?
Go one.
Sunday at the Masters. Oh, buddy.
Who is getting a green jacket?
I'm going to go Rory. I think he does it.
All right.
I think he does it. I think he's just in such a good – I think he's in a great headspace. And we'll see. What if he – wouldn't it be hilarious, Matt, if you post this and he doesn't even make the cut? It's just something –
Oof.
Not for him, obviously, but for – me and the viewers would be hilarious. But no, I'm going Rory. I just think that's safe money bet is Scotty, right? But I'm not going to be safe. You just said I'm head to the casino. Yeah, I'm not going to be that safe. Let's have a little fun in life, right? Let's sweat a little bit. So I'm going to go with Rory in that one.
I hate to be a copycat, but I'm going to go Rory too.
Yeah,
there's just something different about him this year.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the win at the Players, where even when J.J. Spawn got close, Rory never fell out of it, right?
Well, and he put his foot on the gas pedal, and I think that's it's not the fact that he won the Players, it's the way that he won it, and I think that's something that's really important too, understanding what went into that, both the mental and the physical of the actual shots, but then also understanding what you said, what's coming behind you. I think he's in a good position.
Rory never looked bothered. He never looked flustered. He just took it one hole at a time and meticulously dominated at TPC Sawgrass. And so I think you see more of the same at Augusta this weekend. So, yeah, I agree with you. I've got Rory getting his first ever green jacket.
Love it.
Bryce, before I let you go, man, tell our listeners where they can find your work.
Of course, man. Obviously, the connection you and I have made is I cover LSU for 24/7 Sports, so you can head over to Go 24/7 for the latest stuff that we've got going on over there in terms of LSU baseball. Well, everything we talked about tonight. LSU baseball, LSU softball, all of those things. And then over on my podcast, where it's all college football all the time, we talk the crowded booth. I'll tease this. I haven't really said this a lot. I think I posted a little bit about it. But we just wrapped up our first ever campus tour where we got to kind of go and do a full facility tour. We also got to do some interviews and talk with some coaches as well and take in practice. We were invited out there. So we're getting ready. We're editing as we're speaking with SMU. So it was a really fun. They just built a brand new $100 million end zone facility over there in Dallas. Beautiful, beautiful. So we got that coming out on the channel, and then obviously we go live on the channel every Monday and Wednesday during the season, and also out of season as well. But yeah, great content over there. We talk college football all the time, as you know. It is a 24/7, 365-day sport at this point. So yeah, come join us, come hang out with us. It's great conversation. We view it as it's me and two of my buddies from growing up. We played Little League baseball together, and view it as if you want to watch elite sports talk. I'm going to say elite because I don't think it is, but you want to watch button-up sports talk, head over to ESPN, Fox, and CBS. If you want to have fun with guys that, like when you were talking around the lunch table, in high school, then can come hang out with us. We've got some interesting takes. One of our guys put Diego Pavia as the #1 quarterback in the SEC. So I don't know what he was on, but he had an interesting method to the madness, and I had to respect. I might not agree, but I had to respect how he got there.
That's fair.
That's fair. So it is what it is. But no, man, I appreciate you having me on, and we'll have to get you on the show. But yeah, the crowded booth, you can find it on YouTube, all social media platforms as well.
Speaking of social media, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at We Talk Ball 4. You can also click the link down below to go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. That's going to do it for this edition of In the Game. Bryce Koon, Matt Miguez signing off. Talk to you next week.